Chinese Cinderella by Adeline Enma, Chapter 16. Chapter 16, Hong Kong. We three children were very excited when we walked up the gangway of the British flagship China Star and saw officers, crew, and staff rushing around. A Chinese steward led the way and helped Uncle Jean and Aunt Renee with our luggage. Victor, Gladden, and I lagged behind. The steward was tall and thin and towered over everyone. His head was completely bald and he walked with a pronounced limp. As we followed them down a long, narrow corridor toward our cabins, all we could see was the steward's shiny scalp bobbing up and down under the dim ceiling lights. Victor whispered to me, "One thing about having no hair at all on your head, you always look neat." Though I was still feeling nervous and tongue-tied because it had only been 3 days since Aunt Rainey took me out of St. Joseph's, I laughed out loud. That was the effect Victor had on people. He and Claudine made me feel at ease as soon as I met them. "Boys to the right and girls to the left," Uncle Jean said. Our two cabins were directly opposite each other. Inside, everything was neat, bare, and clean. While Aunt Renee, Claudine, and I were unpacking, there was a knock on the door. Victor stood there grinning from ear to ear and wearing a bright red and orange life jacket. "What are you wearing? Why are you wearing that?" Claudine protested. "Our ship hasn't even sailed yet." "In case the China Star starts going down, then you will really be sorry you are not wearing one yourself. Here, let me show you something." He parted the curtain and looked out of the round porthole. Our cabin was below deck. Outside we could see nothing but deep dark water. It did appear rather sinister and forbidding. Claudine became alarmed. "Mama, how often does a ship sink?" she asked. Before Aunt Rainey had time to reply, Victor quipped with a straight face, "Only once." Aunt Rainey and I could not help laughing in spite of ourselves. But then Victor did something my brothers would never have done. He took off his life jacket, slipped it on his sister, and showed her how to adjust the straps. There were only two narrow twin beds in our cabin, each covered with a dark blue bedspread tucked in tightly. At night, our steward brought in a tiny roll-out cot because there were three of us. I assumed the cot was for me, though the mattress was thin and barely 6 inches from the floor. I didn't mind because it was a small price to pay for being rescued from the communist. I was arranging the blankets and pillow when Aunt Rainey put a restraining hand on my arm. Now, remember what I told you on your first day with us. It's share and share alike in a family. Nobody is going to be treated differently. Come, let's draw lots to decide who will sleep on the floor." She tore a sheet of paper into 3 parts, wrote bed 1 on one, bed 2 on the second, and cot on the third, folded them and placed them in a paper bag from which we made our picks, including Aunt Rainey herself. Claudine picked first, came up with cot, and slept there the entire time without protest. That was how the Schilling family treated me throughout the time I spent with them. They made me feel as if I were their third child. For the first time in my life, I did not automatically get the short end of the stick, but was given an equal share, just like Victor and Claudine. As we steamed southward, the weather became noticeably warmer. The sea was calm, and we three children spent much time playing hide and seek on the decks. Once Victor hid in a lifeboat for half an hour while we searched everywhere. Then he suddenly jumped out as we passed below him, scaring and delighting us at the same time. "I am Sinbad, the sailor," he cried. "Don't you love the smell of the salty sea and the noise of the engines and everything about the ship?" "What I love best is the library. Let's go there," I told them. The library was tucked away in a quiet, secluded garden near to a sun-drenched atrium. All the books were in English. Most of them were mysteries, romances, and travel books. We browsed for a while until Victor found a shack of games. Claudine turned out to be a whiz at Monopoly. While we played, I could not help noticing how nice Victor was to his sister. Though he liked to tease her, he was gentle and protective at the same time. For long stretches of time on the voyage, as we chased each other on deck, read books in the library, played games in the atrium, or made paper cuts from the book Mother Maria had given me, I actually felt as if I were part of the Skilling family and no longer the unwanted daughter who always came last. At night, I would fantasize about being adopted by them, belonging to them, and going off with them forever. How wonderful life would be if I did not have to face Niang ever again. Then I would remember my true status and my heart would be touched by ice. It could be put off no longer. The dreaded day had arrived for me to come face to face with Niang. Our ship steamed into the dock in Hong Kong harbour. We walked down the gangplank in search of a familiar face, but no one was there to meet us. Aunt Rainey comforted me. It was so difficult to get our boat tickets, and I couldn't be sure until the very last minute. By then, it was too late to write to your parents. 2 months ago, I did send them a letter to say we were definitely coming to Hong Kong soon, but I didn't know the exact date. I'll go find a telephone to tell them we are here and that you are with us, Adeline. They'll be so thrilled. Victor and Claudine groaned in unison, crushed at not being met. I breathed a sigh of relief but quickly pretended disappointment. We hailed a taxi and squeezed in with all our luggage. Aunt Rainey turned to me. I forgot today is Sunday. We are lucky because when I found your parents, I found everyone home, including your father. I sat in the taxi in silent terror. The roads were clean and traffic was orderly. Our cab trailed a tall red double-decker bus which stopped at a traffic light. Claudine wound down the car window. How hot and stuffy Hong Kong is, she said. Look at the street signs. They are all bilingual with English on top and Chinese at the bottom, but nothing in French. Victor answered in a superior tone. Of course there is nothing in French. Everything has to be in English because we are on British soil. Hong Kong has been a British colony for over 100 years. It became British when China lost the Opium War. Look at the shop signs. They have English on them too. Having spent so much time together while sailing from Tianjin to Hong Kong, the three of us had become good friends. Victor addressed me. Let's continue our Monopoly game when we get to your parents' place. On board ship, I kept losing. Maybe my luck will change here. Will you show me how to make those paper cuts and lend me that book Mother Maria gave you called Paper Magic? What a smashing book. You think your mother will let us have some big sheets of paper so we can make fleets of aeroplanes and platoons of soldiers? I'll paint designs on them in 2 different colors and we can play war games with them. Won't that be fun? I smiled and nodded. Victor didn't know that the make-believe Niang I talked about was very different from the real one we would be facing. All too quickly, our cab turned into a street marked Boundary Street and stopped opposite an imposing school building. Was I to be dropped off at another school so soon? A large sign above the gate read, Maryknoll Convent School. No children were about and the gate was closed. The cab driver asked me for his fare in Cantonese, expecting me to translate since I was the only one with a Chinese face. Aunt Rainey answered in fluent Mandarin and paid him. Regarding her with new respect, he pointed to the freshly painted 3-story apartment building next to us and helped with our luggage. So they live opposite a girls' school, I thought. Is little sister enrolled here? How convenient for her. Suddenly father, Niang, fourth brother, little sister and 2 maids were swarming around us. Hello, 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 welcome, welcome. Niang was embracing Aunt Rainey and jabbering away gaily in a mixture of French and English. We have been watching out for you from a balcony. Come in, come in. Her greeting appeared to include me, though she neither made eye contact nor addressed me directly. Father grinned from ear to ear and warmly shook Uncle Jean's hand. Fourth brother hailed Victor and little sister was making conversation with Claudine. In the hubbub, they had forgotten me. I felt faint at my good fortune and lingered behind with the maids helping them with the luggage. I was the last to struggle up the stairs with my suitcase. Their apartment was on the 2nd floor. The front door was half open and I entered the halfway come dining room. Inside it was dim, but I heard voices and laughter emanating from the living room. I blinked to clear my vision and put my case down tentatively, pushing it close against a wall to make it as obstructive as possible. Someone coughed and I looked up, realizing with a start that I was not alone. My eyes adjusted to the semi-darkness and there, standing quietly at one end of the oval dining table against a small window, was my grandfather. Yay! I cried as my heart leaped with joy. I rushed across to stand by his side, knowing he has been waiting for me. Let me look at you, he said, measuring my head against his chest. My, how you have grown. I do believe you are already almost as tall as your Aunt Baba. Tell me, did you lead your class before you left Tianjin? I couldn't very well tell him about being the only student left in the entire school. Besides, I was a little shy because he sounded strange and familiar at the same time. There was something else indefinable about him which brought a lump to my throat. I looked down at my feet, unable to speak for a moment. Have you already forgotten how to talk in a Shanghai dialect? He teased. Are you able to chat in French and English now? Take off your coat. Why are you wearing it when sweat is pouring down your face? I do believe you are still dressed for the bitter Tianjin weather. What is to become of you? Grown so big and still so little. His voice was full of love, bringing back long suppressed memories of home and Shanghai and Aunt Baba. I took off my coat and sweater. Underneath, I was still wearing the long sleeved white blouse and dark blue woolen skirt. That way, the winter uniform of St. Joseph's and the only clothes that still fitted me. We would better go in and join your parents now, he said with a hint of reluctance, leading the way. Otherwise, they'll be wondering where you are. In the living room, everyone was crowded around a glass coffee table. They made room to include us and gave Yeye the seat of honor, while I squatted on the floor with the other children. Aunt Rainey had a pair of scissors in her right hand. She took her coat and examined the buttons one by one. As we watched spellbound, she selected a button, cut a knot, and pulled a thread. Out emerged a sparkling diamond to glitter magnificently against the dark brown cloth of her winter jacket. Everyone gasped and Niang laughed out loud while clasping her hands like a child. Aunt Rainey repeated the process until there were 8 precious stones glittering in front of us, dazzling us with their radiance and lustre. My entire diamond collection, Niang explained. How clever you are, Rainey. Did anyone suspect? There were a few hair-raising moments, Aunt Rainey replied with a smile. But let's not dwell on those in front of the children. Not only do you have your gems back, we also have rescued your daughter from communist hands. This calls for a double celebration, Nessi Pasa. Though Aunt Rainey was speaking of me, neither Niang nor father looked in my direction. So far, they had not addressed me at all. Theirs was the gaze that glances but does not see. Champagne all around, father exclaimed, grinning from ear to ear. How can we ever thank you enough? May we invite you to the Peninsula Hotel for dinner tonight? They have recently employed a new chef who is excellent. During the ensuing commotion, Yeye signaled me to leave the room with him. When Aunt Rainey phoned this morning and I heard of your unexpected arrival in Hong Kong, he said, I ordered the maids to set up a cot in my room at once. While your Niang is in this euphoric moment, quickly unpack your bag and settle in before she changes her mind about your staying here. This apartment is small and there is little room. Thank you, Yeye. I picked up my suitcase and followed him to his room. There was no need to say more. He did not elaborate and I asked no questions. We understood each other's predicament only too well. He strolled back to the living room while I started to unpack. The new quality in his voice that hadn't been there before came back to me. What was it? The correct word dawned as I closed the lid to my empty suitcase. Of course, it was defeat. Yeye had given up. The Skilling family stayed at a small hotel nearby. Next morning, they walked over for breakfast at 9 o'clock. Father had already left for the office and fourth brother and little sister were at school. Niang made plans to take her sister's family shopping and sightseeing. She invited Yeye to accompany them. No, thank you, Yeye declined politely. I am feeling a little tired today. My neck bothers me. Adeline, you can make yourself useful for once and massage Yeye's neck for him, Niang ordered, looking directly at me for the first time. I was overjoyed. Not only had Niang finally acknowledged me, she had even given me a task to perform. Perhaps she had forgiven me. Yes, Niang, I answered promptly. Victor groaned. Does that mean Adeline won't be coming with us? Quel dommage. Before I go, Adeline, how about folding a few more paper airplanes with me? There is still time. After the departure, Yeye and I settled comfortably in the airy and bright living room. Read me the newspapers, Yeye said. The newsprint here in Hong Kong is definitely smaller. I can hardly read the newspapers even with glasses. My doctor says it's due to my diabetes. Lately, I am also having trouble hearing. My lower back aches as much as my neck. The worst thing about growing old is that the gadgets of my body are failing one by one. I started to read, but all the news was depressing. It is estimated that the loss incurred at the Battle of Hue Hai has cost the nationalists over 500,000 troops. Chiang Kai shek has definitely resigned as president of China. Vice President Li Tseng takes office and is trying to negotiate peace with the communists. People's Liberation Army soldiers are marching towards Nanking and Shanghai and preparing to cross the Yangtze River en masse. Mobs intending to flee Shanghai for Hong Kong and Taiwan congregate and riot at shipping offices for tickets. $1 is now worth 9.5 million Chinese yuan. I stopped often because many Chinese words were unfamiliar. You are forgetting your Chinese, Ye admonished. Go get the dictionary on the table by my bed. Look up those new words. I just taught you and copy them in your notebook. My mind was full of gloomy thoughts and I suddenly burst out. I am sick and tired of blindly copying Chinese characters over and over into my notebook like a robot. I hate studying Chinese. It's a waste of time. Besides, your dictionary is not a real dictionary. It's only a Chinese dictionary, not a Chinese English dictionary. I only want to learn English, not Chinese. How can you say that? AA demanded. The hurt on his face made me cringe, but I was unable to stop. My teacher, Mother Maria, says that only way to succeed in the second half of the 20th century is to be fluent in English. Hand me a piece of paper, get me a pen, and come over here, AA said softly. Let me show you something. Though you have a fine mind and a subtle intellect, the sentiments you express not only expose your ignorance, they also wound my heart. You forget that I know you only too well. Not only what you look like outside, but also how you are made inside. How can you say you hate the study of Chinese when you are Chinese yourself? Go look in the mirror if you have any doubts. You may be right in believing that if you study hard, one day you might become fluent in English. But you will still look Chinese and when people meet you, they will see a Chinese girl no matter how well you speak English. You will always be expected to know Chinese, and if you don't, I'm afraid they will not respect you as much. Besides, China is a huge country with a vast population and an ancient culture. Though life has to be lived forward, it can only be understood backward. Reading Chinese history will enlighten you in ways no English writing can. I predict that in 100 years from now, the world's many languages will be distilled down to 3: Chinese, English, and Spanish. Chinese will never disappear because China's population has a unified written language. Above all, there is the wisdom and magic of our language itself. When you read a Chinese book, try to look at the characters and think about them. I have met many who appear to know a good many Chinese words but never actually grasp the truth of any of them. Let me give you the example of just one character to illustrate my point. In ancient times, cowrie shells were used as units of money and were exchanged for goods and services. In time, a hole was drilled in these shells and a row of shells was held together by a string. A string of shell was called a bay. Look at the character bay carefully. Does it not resemble a row of shells held together by a piece of string knotted at the end? I agree that Chinese words are more difficult to learn than English. We do not have an alphabet and there is no correlation at all between our written and spoken language. In fact, I once met a Frenchman who could not speak a word of Chinese but wrote and read Chinese so well he worked as a translator of Chinese law at the French consulate in Shanghai. Chinese is a pictorial language, not a phonetic one. Our words come from images. The meaning of many characters is subtle and profound. Other words are poetic and even philosophical. To go back to bay, because the word evolved from something that was valuable in ancient times, many modern Chinese words containing the component bay are associated with finance or commerce in some way. Take the word may, it means to buy. May means to sell. Place the two words side by side, may, buy, sell, and the term means business. Now, what is the essence of business if you not buy, sell? Regardless of what commodity you are trading, if you wish to be successful in business, you hope to buy low and sell high. Otherwise, you are in big trouble. This is universally true regardless of what business you are in. Look at me. May again. The words almost look the same but are pronounced a bit differently. What is the only difference between the two characters compared to may by? The word may sell has the symbol plus and to on top. What is to? The word to means earth or land. If the essence of business is buy sell, then its most important ingredient is earth or land. Should you go into business one day, keep this in mind. Everything else can be made better or cheaper or faster, but not land. It is the only commodity that can never be duplicated or replaced. Now look at two other words that also contain bay. They appear very similar. At first glance, if you are careless, you might even mistake them for each other. Pin and tan. But you have to be very careful. Don't ever mix them up just because they resemble each other. Pin means poverty, tan means greed. Remember how much the two words look alike. Yes, greed and poverty are intimately linked in mysterious ways indeed. All covet, all lose. You have the newspaper in front of you. Pick another word for instance. A. Look at it. The top part N is sound. The bottom part Zin is heart. Does not look like a jumping heart? Put N on top of Zin and you have A, which means sound from your heart. The new word A is a symbol of intention or meaning. What is intention but a sound from your heart? How about a new word, a difficult word, Jian? On top is the symbol for grass or straw or vegetable matter. Below is a little house with a partition in the middle. On the left of the wall is a symbol for small. On the right is Chong, a symbol for worm. So here we have a little house made of vegetable matter with a little worm in it. What is the word? Jiang, cocoon. Look at it again. Now close your eyes. Do you see a little straw hut with a small worm inside? Then you can have two or more words that combined together are transformed into something wonderful and illuminating. For instance, V means danger. G means opportunity. Add them together and you have a crisis. Break them apart and keep in mind that whenever you are in crisis, you are in the midst of danger as well as opportunity. Now, do you still think the study of Chinese is boring? For a whole week, Niang went out with the shillings. She always invited Ye but never included me. Everyone knew she didn't really want Ye to accompany them and only asked him out of politeness. He invariably thanked her and said he preferred to rest at home. Did I mind being left behind with my grandfather? Of course not. As soon as Niang left, it was as if a heavy weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Aside from Ye, me and the maids, even the apartment itself seemed to breathe a sigh of deliverance. At once the whole place became brighter, cozier and friendlier. The two of us sitting side by side playing Chinese chess or reading the newspaper, the house would gradually transform itself into a happier and more intimate place. A week went by and it was Sunday again. The sun was shining. Everyone was home and excitement was in the air. At breakfast, Niang announced, "Today we'll all go for a long scenic drive and visit the Elephant Repulse Bay Hotel on the far side of Hong Kong Island. I have made lunch reservations at the hotel's dining room, where the view is breathtaking and the food delicious. A car will travel from Kowloon to Hong Kong across the harbour by ferry. After lunch, we'll go for a swim at the beach, rent a tent and have an afternoon picnic. Won't that be fun?" She made it sound so enticing that for once even Ye agreed to go. I wondered if I was going to be included in this special outing. Niang had not said I couldn't go, nor had she said I could. One by one they piled into father's large Studebaker while the maids stocked the car trunk with picnic, hampers, lotion, blankets and towels. Father, Ye and Uncle Jean sat in front. Niang, Aunt Renee, Claudine, fourth brother and little sister were in the back. Victor and I stood hesitantly next to each other. The car sagged under the weight of its many passengers. "Come on, Victor," Niang cried out gaily in French. "Room for just one more, I think. We can all squeeze in just a little tighter." Victor was half in and half out of the car. He turned around and saw me watching him from the curb. "It's not fair, Maman. What about Adeline?" he asked Aunt Renee in French. "Since AA is coming with us, she'll be home by herself. Why don't we take her along?" Not understanding French and impatient to depart, father asked Victor in English, "What is it, Victor? Do you want to use the bathroom before we start?" Victor shook his head. "No, Uncle Joseph," he began in English, but Niang interrupted him in French. There is not enough room. You can see how crowded we all are. Then what about yesterday and the day before and the day before that? Victor persisted. Stop dwelling and get in the car, Aunt Rennie commanded. Everyone is ready to go and you are delaying everything. It's so unfair, Victor continued. Why doesn't she get to go anywhere with us? That's just the way it is, Niang exclaimed sharply. You either get in now and come with us or you can stay home with us. Suit yourself. In that case, Victor replied gallantly, I think I'll stay and keep Adeline company. He climbed out to stand by my side. Together we watched the car drive off. I was overwhelmed by his chivalry but could find no words sufficient to express my gratitude. After a painful pause, I ran upstairs, dug up my book Paper Magic, gave it to him and said, This is for you. He took the book hesitantly, too stunned to say a word, unable to believe his good luck. Thank you.